Are you still holding on to old belief systems?
On today's show, we're going to be talking about how to let go of old beliefs and how can that improve your life. Stay tuned. It's Awaken Your Spirit.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez-Garcia. And our show is about inspiration, motivation, and developing the mindset to live a happy and abundant life.
We're live here every Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you guys would like to join us here on the show, make sure you turn on the live notification button here if you're watching on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on that little bell so you get reminders each time when we go live. Today, we're talking about old belief systems and maybe some old belief systems that are no longer serving us today. We're going to talk about the importance of letting those go and installing the new ones. But before we get into that, we always like to start off with our first segment of the show, which is the inspirational moment with Veronica.
So inspirational moments is when I like to read something inspirational. And today I'm going to read something from a book. It's called The Divine Romance. And it's by Paramahansa Yogananda. There's the picture. All right. So now the title of this chapter is called The Movie Drama of Life.
I love dramas. Don't we all? Most of us, right?
All right. It says, when you see a motion picture or a stage performance, you know the plot. If you know the plot beforehand, it will not be so interesting. It is good that you don't understand this life because God is playing a movie drama in your life. It wouldn't be interesting if we knew what was going to take place before it happened. Don't be anxious about what is to be in the end, but always pray to God, teach me to play my part in this drama of life. Weak or strong, sick or well, high or low, rich or poor, with an immortal attitude, that at the end of this drama I may know the moral of it all. Do not waste your time. You are God's greatest creation, greater than all else he has made. You are blessed with the power to think and reason. God says, I gave you will, I gave you freedom and free choice. Perchance you will forsake all things and love me who gave those gifts to you. I at last found all the silver streamlets of my desires leading to that great ocean of consciousness. Many of you swim toward that ocean, but stop by the shore. If you keep on following the good in life, you shall flow down the river of desire into the ocean of God's consciousness. All life's realities stand before you will be unreal. Today we are, and tomorrow we are not. We must remember our utmost duty to that great power which is behind all our lives. In acting out our part in this drama, we must not forget our highest duty to him. If we want to understand this life, we must realize the fine work God is doing in the flowers, the flame of his mind that is burning in our thoughts, the life from him that is pouring through our souls, and the worlds upon worlds that are spread out over the great vastness of the cosmos.
Oh, I like that. If you guys like that too, give us some hearts, give us some likes here into the comments. If you guys have any questions, you enjoyed it, type yes here into the comments as well. And we do the inspirational moments every time we do our show because there's always a message that we can share, and that's either we find an inspiring message that we read that would be great for all of us. It's universal, and sometimes you'll do a journal writing where when we do our meditations, Veronica will just allow that great source to come through her. And it's just what it shares. And sometimes we'll read them. Like we just did an interview recently from Ireland. And you read one of your journal writings from over a year ago, maybe. And it's just whatever page you pick up, and it still holds true for today and how it can improve all of us in our lives. And so I hope that's inspiring for you guys and just food for thought that we are given this great gift of reason. we are given a gift to think for ourselves and our free will. And it's the will to be able to act and do things. We have to learn how to choose the right actions. That way we get the results that we are looking for in our life.
And I like this book and the message behind it, because so what it's saying about the drama of life is like, if we know what's going to happen every single day, and you know how people get afraid and they get scared of like the unknown, because, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next year. I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. But if you already knew, how boring would life be? Because it like it said, it's like watching a movie, already knowing what's going to happen. It's not as interesting. But when you can approach life in a way that you're excited to know what's going to happen, like, oh, I'm excited, I want to know what's going to happen, approach it in that way, and every day is a new day, and it's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen today, then it creates more excitement in your life and more joy, because you're bringing in a better energy versus dreading or being fearful of what's to come.
Absolutely. So that was the inspirational moment for today. If you guys know if there's anybody that can benefit from our message that we share here on Awaken Your Spirit, please share this to them. Tag somebody here into the comment feed if you know that they can learn something from us, or you can just want to bring people in for the great energy. And so we always appreciate that. So thank you very much. And I want to say hello to a few people that are joining in with us today before we get started. We got Mary Sterling that says, Mary. Good morning, Veronica and Aaron. Good morning. Good morning. She's coming all the way from Mississippi.
Mississippi.
And she says, love the inspirational moment.
Oh, thank you. We also have Jim Richardson and Martin Lopez who's watching. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, say hello. Type your comments here into the feed. If you have any questions, you can put those here as well. We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you're new to the show, type new. We'd love to say hello. All right. So let's get into our topic of today. So we're talking about letting go of old beliefs.
Old beliefs. How many of us still have those and running on autopilot?
Because, we all have a belief in some way. We carry tons of beliefs, and our beliefs are being ingrained into our mind since the time we are being born into this world. Even a little bit before is what's going on in that consciousness as we were developing. And a lot of us may have heard about, we are programmed, we learn belief systems, things that come from our parents, things that come from our schools, our teachers, our friends, etc. And sometimes we take in information and we believe things to be a certain way. And what I have found in my own experience, that there's a lot of things that I used to believe that just were not true.
Yeah.
And when it's like, when that glass shatters, it's like, I've been running this program and thinking this way for so long, and I was taught that. Maybe not deliberately, but it's how I perceive things to be, what I saw, how other people behave. And so I would perceive it to be that way. And we all do that because we're always trying to make sense of things around us.
Yeah. And how many of us believed everything that our parents told us, growing up? Like they would say something, and because they're our parents, we automatically believe it. There's so many things that my parents would tell me, especially my dad. I don't know if he just messed with us, but he would tell us different things that were untrue. And I don't know if it was just his own way of entertaining himself. But sometimes he would say just crazy things, like if a butterfly lands on your head, your hair is gonna fall out, or if something just crazy things. And it's like, what? Why would he tell us that? Or and then so it's like we see a butterfly and we don't want it to land on us because we're afraid of our hair falling out. And then I don't know, just a lot of things like that. And it's like, why, as a little kid, you believe it, but as you start to get a little older, then you can make up your own mind of things. But I remember even being young, and after I started going to school, they would say certain things, and until I started interacting with other people, if they say, oh, these people are that way, and then in my mind, I'm like, they're not that way to me. At least I've experienced it differently.
Yeah.
So it's I didn't at that point, I started to not believe everything they said.
Yeah. And what is a belief? A belief is it's a thought that you keep thinking over and over again
Mhm.
until it gets ingrained into that subconscious mind. And what's interesting, what I started to learn about beliefs is, our beliefs are also based on our evaluation of something.
Yeah.
And we talked about earlier, it's like what you perceive, what you see around you, what someone tells you. Maybe you're watching something on the news and you get some information and like, oh, this is what's going on and this is what happens. And then we just take that as truth without really going deeper and analyzing all the facts and figures. We just hear one message from one person and we take that as truth rather than doing our own investigating. And what happens, we just let that stay there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we allow old stuff to stay there from back when we were children. And we just always did things that way.
Like,
have you ever heard that?
Question it?
Yeah.
Like, why do I do this in that way? Like, is there a different way to do stuff?
There's always a different way to do stuff.
Yeah.
And there's belief systems that really help us in our life. It's being kind to other people. It's that golden rule. If I do great things for other people, that I will get that also in return.
It's like treat others the way you would like to be treated, and that's a rule that it's stuck to me since I was really little. I used to go to church and all this stuff, and that was the one thing that stood out of everything. All the other stuff, it was a few things, but that was one of the main ones that stood out. It's
like when you hear the message and it's things that really sound good and true to you, and other ones like, I'm not sure about that, but we get a chance to evaluate that. As kids, we don't really question as much.
Yeah.
And as we start to develop that reasoning thinking mind, then it's like, is this still true? I see contrast and something doesn't make sense here. But when you see the same thing over and over, other people are doing the same thing, they're saying the same thing, we're like, oh, then that must be the way it is, or that must be truth.
I used to always try to do things differently. Like, if
you still do things differently.
If things were done a certain way, I'm like, well, can't we do it this way? Or I would just try to do it differently versus like the same pattern that everyone's doing. I would kind of create an interruption and try to change it.
Kind of like, you can't do that. Oh, I'll prove that to you. And then she does it. And it's like, okay, she did it. So, but it's things like that. We don't take the time to reason. We don't take the time to really think and question that there's a lot of things that are possible.
Yeah.
I want to say hello to Martin Lopez. He says, hey guys. And he says, I'm holding on tight to my old beliefs, working daily to release my grip.
Yeah. And it could be, it could be something that you have to work on daily, because especially if you want to let go of it, but it still kind of has you, like, it's a daily thing that you work on until you finally just let go. And a lot of it too is your mindset and changing your perspective on it. Like why am I thinking this way, and working, to change it daily. And it's like developing a new habit. Yeah.
We also have a watch party going on here. I'm going to say hello to David Norris. Good morning, David. He says, learning to challenge the conviction of our beliefs is some of the hardest work we will ever do.
Yeah.
And it's like, the conviction means like just how strong we hold on to beliefs. Like, that's just the way it is, and no one's going to change that. And there's some beliefs that we just will cling on to, like it's not going to change. And again, it's our perception of what that believes, and is it serving us or is it not serving us? And sometimes we can get caught up in these beliefs, but I learned to really challenge, is what I'm thinking, is that really holding true? But the biggest question I'll ask myself is this belief serving me? And that could be so many different aspects, right? So we have beliefs about ourselves. We have beliefs about our society, our economy. We have beliefs about business, to relationships, you name it. But I think the biggest one is really our belief about ourselves.
Yeah.
Do we believe we are capable of doing so much more? Do we believe that we are all connected, that we come from this higher power, that we have this great energy that's within all of us, where we can create anything? As opposed to another belief could be, I just can't do anything. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I've tried everything and it never works. So, those are different types of belief systems that we can carry.
Yeah.
And there's some that can be very destructive to us.
Yeah, but we're all capable of doing greater things. We're all capable of creating and designing the life that we want. But it's those belief systems that get in the way, that we're still holding on to, that kind of stops us. And it's like, oh, and then you start to question yourself, like, oh, I can't really do that. and we create excuses for not doing it.
Yeah. I'd like to know from you guys who are joining with us, whether you're watching live or you're also watching the replay, what are some beliefs that you get challenged with? Some that you feel like I would like to change this. I'm aware that I need to change this belief because it's not working for me in my life. If you don't mind, type those here into the comment if you'd like to know where you're coming from, what challenges you have, because to change a belief isn't always that easy. And sometimes if you have the right information, you can change it, pretty quickly. But to hold an old conviction, as David was mentioning earlier, something you've been holding on to or thinking about for so long, and to try to change that because you've ingrained a habit now. Based on that belief system, it's a thought, and you tied an emotion to that. And now that dictates a behavior around that belief system and the way you do things. And to change a lot of that takes a little bit of a practice.
Yeah. So what are some things that people can do to start changing their beliefs?
I'll go from my experience and how I would do it is I find when I feel like I'm struggling with something, because I have to be aware of something. So usually you'll find there's a destructive belief system when there's something that's just not, you feel is working out for you in your life. And like, why isn't this working out? How can I want to make a change and I don't like, this area or position that I'm in right now. I want to make a difference. And so I have to be aware of what is it that I'm thinking. Hello, Abigail.
Hi, Abigail.
And I realized that everything starts in thought. So I have to go back to belief system. What kind of beliefs do I have around this situation? And we might talk, we talk about it, Veronica and I.
Yeah.
For you, those of you, you might want to write it down and like list out all the things you believe about a certain situation. What are all the sayings that you mentioned? What are all the words? What are the things that you hear a lot? Well, that's related to money, about yourself, about your career, your relationships, being in a relationship. You want to be aware of what the conversation is going on in your mind. And from there, it's like, okay, well, how do I really feel about this? And then what we do with our clients is we go deeper at an emotional level, because it's the emotion that is like the stickiness.
Yeah.
It's the bond that holds that belief into that subconscious mind, because we have thoughts that go on in our mind constantly. But I feel like it's the emotion that grabs it and hangs on to it.
And the emotion, a lot of times it's there because of a event that happened or like a traumatic event. It doesn't always have to be traumatic, but it's an experience. Like if you've had an experience around whatever it is that you're holding on to, like say you were in a relationship and it was a really bad relationship, and then you break up, and then now to get into a new one, you can have a belief system like all women are this way or all men are this way, and then it just gets ingrained, and you're afraid to get into another relationship for fear of getting hurt or fear of being mistreated or whatever it was.
Yeah, like that one bad experience that you have, and now everything is associated with that. And we were talking with this about with somebody the other day who was wanting to work with us, and they were having issues in the relationships.
That's right.
And everything she was saying was going great in her life, but one thing was, I just want to be able to attract the right relationship. But she, because of a previous incident, I think it was a previous marriage, was very not so pleasant. And now she had developed trust issues. And so because of that one individual, which would be man, subconscious mind says, I feel this way. This person's a man. That means all men are untrustworthy.
But there could have been a previous incident, like with mom and dad, in which she experienced mistrust and things like that. So we all have these experiences, and we start to associate. And the more that we associate, it becomes an ingrained pattern. Yeah.
And so that was going on with her. Let's talk about, or let's listen to Abigail for a second. She says, fears apply here. We don't realize how many fears we were told to have based on other people's experiences that we have accepted as real. We don't usually know the story of why they had that fear to begin with. Many fears are taught. We must unlearn the fears that are not really our own fears.
That is true, because I remember growing up, there was a lot of fear of my dad, like that he would get mad if we did something wrong, or but also fear of the world around us, because my parents, they were so like they wanted to inform us about certain things, but it was almost like it created a fear, like, oh, you guys have to be careful when you go over here because someone can get you and kidnap you and all this like crazy stuff. And it's like, whoa, like the world's not safe. And so you know, we were growing up thinking like there's always going to be someone like
they're going to get you.
They're going to get us. So it's like I was always like, you know, aware of my surroundings, which is, it's good to be aware of your surroundings, but not be in that fear. And
like the moment you walk out the door.
Yeah, it wasn't, for me, my experience wasn't that bad, but then there was things that happened that possibly because in my vibration, there was that fear energy, things happened. And this one time I was in high school and I was walking with a friend to the car, and then this pink Cadillac, it was a convertible, comes down the street, like kind of towards us. And then there was these people sitting up on the seats, and someone got a gun and pointed it at us.
Wow.
And then I'm like, I just said like duck, and there was like, we were by a car, so we just ducked, like, you know, behind a car, and they just drove away. But I think they were just messing around and trying to scare people. But it was scary, and things like that. And there was other experiences too where we thought somebody was going to pull a gun and we were being followed and all this stuff. But it's because it's in our vibration, it's in our system where we attract things like that. Yeah,
because there are bad things that happen in this world. We see a lot of that. And then, again, that's the thing. If you see it enough, it's you're going to believe that, wow, there's a lot of bad things. That's why we always recommend to our clients, we recommend to people that watch this show is, if you're trying to really work on your thoughts and your emotions and you really want to improve your life, you got to avoid watching a lot of the negative stuff that people are trying to put into your mind. So the news is one of those. Yeah. Because my parents always grew up watching the news. I hated watching the news. It always got in the way of all my cartoon programs. and so I never grew up watching news. Never read the newspaper. I always thought it was boring for some reason. You know, kids growing up. But my parents, and even today, like Veronica and I, we don't really pay attention to the news at all. We might hear a story just to be informed.
I actually read the newspaper, but I would read the horoscopes.
I would watch. I would look and see what's new at the movies. You mean you used to open up the paper to find out what the movies before phones? And so that was bad, or maybe a comic strip. Let's pass the Sunday comics. But then I'd go for all the stuff that would make me that would make me uplift and make me feel happy. But when you're watching things like that, you're paying attention to it. That information is getting into your subconscious mind. And that, again, it's going to install an emotion. Yeah. And fear is a great motivator. Yeah. And so those that really take it in, it can make them very paranoid and fearful that everything's going wrong. And they're going to see more of that. And I've learned this in clinical practice. When I was in practice, is I understood that if you look for something, you're going to find it. Yeah. And I knew that there was doctors or clinics that specialized in one particular disease or illness. And because that's what they focused on a lot, they had a busy practice of all these people that had that issue, or they would find it on people because that's what they were focused on. Another practice, completely separate. Yeah. And I realized, wow, what you focus on, you do attract. You do. And so that's a belief system. And I just had that experience. Yeah. And you'll find that there are some experience and beliefs that hold truth and some that do not, but we have to evaluate those.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go to some comments for just a moment. So I'm watching the watch party here. David Norris says, what is negative is always available. Just what we're talking about. Yeah. What is positive is also available, and in equal or greater portion. Choose positive. So we talked about earlier when you were reading your the book here from Paramahansa Yogananda was, we have the right to think. We have our God-given gift to reason and our free will. Yeah. We get to choose what we think. We get to choose what we believe in. And so we get to make a choice. Sometimes we allow other people to make that choice for us, but really it's us. We still choose to believe other people. That is your own choice.
Yeah. So it's really important to decide, for yourself, what's good for you, not what other people think is good for you, because then we get stuck in that maybe unhappiness because we're just following what someone else wants versus what we truly want.
Yeah. Abigail says,
All, always, and never is really the language of extremes.
Yeah, I always learned when I was taking tests, and you get the Scantron sheet, and to learn how to take, like, is it A, B, C, or D? I always realized anytime it said all or never, all this way, it was always a false answer. Always false, because it's not absolute. There's always a different side or contrast. So we could say all. We were talking about earlier about the relationship. All men are untrustworthy. Some people believe this. Yeah. Is it all? And sometimes when we question them, is everybody untrustworthy? Oh, not really, but they generalize.
Yeah.
And when we had that with a friend of ours years ago in the past, and we were talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
And we were sitting at that
people
dinner
from Mexico City or something.
Or she was having challenges in her relationships, and she was in one, but there was some issues, that old belief systems that were starting to conflict her relationship. And she was mentioning, oh, you know what they say about these people? And I don't know what they say. What did they say? Oh, and she said something. I can't remember exactly what she said about them. And I'm like, who's been telling you all these things about your relationship? Oh, my friends tell me all this. And I thought, And then I looked at her. I'm like, and how are their relationship? And she says, oh, they're horrible. And it's like, who are we listening to? It's like, are we listening to the wrong people, the wrong message? And you'll find out when it doesn't make you feel very good that we might want to question things once in a while.
Yeah. So Abigail says, this was huge for me. I was lost in phobias for years. I had to pull myself out of it. And this epiphany helped me see the flaw in fears. I was forced to look deeper into the fear is love paradigm. This was part of that realization. Yeah, and it could really get you sucked into that, like that fear of maybe falling in love with someone else, or the fear of getting into a relationship because fear of getting hurt. But there's just so many phobias, just in the relationship category, but also in other areas of life, like safety. It's and it could be debilitating for some people.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, there was another thing that my parents were focusing on was the Night Stalker, where he was breaking into people's houses and like I don't know if he would kidnap women or some weird thing, and that was in LA and we're down in San Diego. But I was afraid, like I was afraid to walk around in the house for fear of someone breaking in a window, and I had nightmares like almost every night. It was pretty intense.
I remember in school of judging other people. You judge people by the way that they look, the way that they dress, the things that they do. And so, like, again, high school is all about when you're learning to who am I,
your
what's
identity.
my identity, and how do I fit into all of this? And so I would see certain people that look a certain way. Oh, and I would have a belief system about that person. Oh, they're this way, and I don't really like that person, but I don't even know them, and I don't like them. And then, like, we in high schools, and you get classes with those people, and you start talking to them, and you realize, wow, this is a really cool person. I really like them, and we became great friends. But it was a prejudgment based on a belief system about how, even in school, like what people say, what they talk about. Oh, they said this. Oh, they're doing this. How rumors get spread, and so we believe those without ever questioning the truth.
Yeah, I always like I would hang out with anyone, really. Like I didn't really have that thing like, oh, if they look a certain way. It was, for me, it was like, if they treat me nice, then I'll talk to them. But if they're mean to me, then I'll stay away. But my sisters, they always said that my friends were weird. You have weird friends, and I think because they look different than like. They all look different. Like, I didn't look like them. They didn't look like me. It was like it wasn't like we all dressed the same or anything. I just had a variety of different friends, and they always told me your friends are weird. And this was even when I was older too. And I'm like, whatever.
But what's interesting is we're talking about old beliefs, is we are still carrying on stuff that we've been believing since we were in grade school, since we were in high school, and we carry those into our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, and so on.
Yeah.
And we have to go back and look, I've been thinking and been believing this the whole time. And some people never really evaluate that. and they still have those types of judgments towards other people.
Yeah.
You see it all around the world. You see it on the news because we're not changing our thought process. We're not questioning. We're not thinking for ourselves. Some people wake up and start to really, wow, I want to make a change. Like Abigail was saying, I used to be in phobia and fear all the time.
Yeah.
And so I started to change a few things.
Yeah.
Going to the watch party here, David says, guard closely the portal of your mind was from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he also says, can't is another word extreme.
Yeah.
Said enough, it permeates into the mind and affects everything that we do.
Yeah.
I even know that was a section that even Paramahansa Yogananda talks about in his teachings was cauterize the can'ts in your mind.
Yeah.
When you say you can't, you already limit yourself.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I can't do that.
Only because if it appears like challenging, a lot of people say, oh, I can't do that. But if you were to really like maybe do some research on it and then figure out how to do it, then it might not be as difficult as you think it is.
So let's go. Abigail says,
fear of the unknown was big for me, and I wasn't seeing it. Seeing it helped me free myself of it. Wow, yeah, that's really good because there's so many people that are still in fear of the unknown. Yeah. Like fear of what's going to happen, like everything that's going on right now. There's so many people living in fear, and that's no way to live. Like we're only here on earth for who knows how long. And if we're living in that fear, that's not living happy. And it's really, it messes with your spirit because you're constantly like in that stress mode, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, you know what, it's just things are going to happen the way they need to happen. And it's like, just go with the flow. Yeah. And it makes things so much easier. And
when you start to go into being aware of an old belief system or changing and just being aware that, wow, I'm in fear, and to do something different, you're going to get a lot of resistance because you're going against an old paradigm, an old programming that it's not that easy to uproot and just take it out. It's like we need to work through that, it's little steps at a time.
Yeah, it takes work.
Because a lot of people, we're talking about these old beliefs, it goes at an unconscious level. We're not always aware of those. There's still stuff that we're not aware of that we discover all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, wow, that I didn't realize that was there. But we pay attention to the things that we say. We pay attention to what we hear all the time. It's really in our language and our body language that will start to show that. But we even have to be aware of that. But we pay close attention. And sometimes we can just get stuck into the habit. We run on autopilot and don't really think. We just go.
Yeah.
And it takes a little effort, a little extra energy to be mindful of the words that we use. We be mindful of how we interact with other people, what we watch, what we pay attention to. Habits here. For me was I always in the habit of I was always in the habit of just watching movies. You get home, you watch TV. It was my family did it all the time. And so when Veronica and I met, you get home and we maybe put on a movie, a show or something. And eventually we replaced that habit with reading. And because of that, we've gained so much more knowledge about ourselves. It's helped us to improve our life. And we don't pay attention. We can fall back into old habits when we get back into doing something that's more productive.
Like Marvel Marathon or something.
Like Marvel movie marathon. I'm still waiting for that. Veronica won't let me do it. I'm waiting for it.
The marathon's going to last for the whole year.
The whole year. We never started it, right?
One movie a month. No.
Abigail says, I think you both are really awesome.
Oh,
thank you. Also, she says, this is an important conversation. Thank you for having it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and we talk about these concepts because we go through them ourselves.
Yeah, we've experienced it, and so we know that it can be beneficial for those watching because we know what it's like to be holding on to these like old beliefs, but we also know what it's like to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And it's so freeing when we finally let go of the old beliefs that don't serve us, because that's what's keeping us pretty much like a slave in our own mind.
Yeah. I want to say goodbye to David. He says, got to go. Thank you for letting me join the conversation live today. Well, thank you so much, David, for being here with us. And Abigail says, I I slip back into fear sometimes. I recover a lot faster now.
That's great, because I think you have more of an awareness now of when you're in that fear mode, and then you take the necessary steps to get out of it. So awareness is key, because there's a lot of people that go, throughout life, and they're not even aware that they're really living in fear. Like if you're, you're going somewhere and you're always like just kind of looking around, like thinking someone's going to get you, like that's living in fear, because you're in a sense like paranoid, like, oh my gosh, like someone's going to get me. And you're in that, it's a stress.
Yeah.
It's really like a stress response that the body, even the body's, all the chemistry within your body is changing because of that thought. So when you think about that, it really messes up your internal structure as well.
And we're talking about that too, because the belief system, why people would hold on to that is in some way it's serving them from their perspective.
Yeah.
Meaning that, well, if I'm not worried, if I don't fear, if I'm not aware of all of this that's going on, I got to know what's going on. You got to be careful, because for part of that, the fear emotion is, and for them, some way of protection.
Yeah.
To avoid danger or to avoid harm. But to be in that energy all the time, what happens is we start to attract more of that, whether it's to ourselves or we start to see that in other people around our neighborhood. And eventually it can, by law of attraction, it'll come to us in some way or some form. It's okay to be cautious. It's okay to take precautions on things. But once you do the necessary measures, be on your way and focus on all the good that's going around. But there's some people that we've experienced that they need to have things in place because they're always in that fear. And if they don't have that security next to them, they're in fear mode. Like, this gives me, comfort. And if they don't have that, then they go back in fear, and they might not see it in that perspective. But if a fear-based mentality is always cautious about things.
Yeah. But it's good to be cautious, but not to the point where you're constantly like worried that something's going to happen, because now that's creating like a phobia, like Abigail said. And
that'll stop you from really experiencing joy in your life, from stepping out and doing things that you want to do, and missing opportunities all the time because of that.
And that could be also like fear of judgment. Like say you really want to go do something, but you're like, no, what if they say something about me, or what are they going to think? And
that's a big one. I still work with that, and I had to pay attention to that. And realize again that's the belief system, that's the program, and it's so strong that it can really make you feel a certain way. And what I've learned to do is I learned to challenge those beliefs.
Yeah,
as when you start to feel the emotion, is let's find out if that's absolutely true, and we do that. But you still have to work on your energy beforehand, because you'll bring that energy to the table, whether you're going to speak in front of people, maybe meeting certain people. And a lot of times I found that great things happen. Whatever thing that was going to happen never happened in the first place. But again, we are taught to worry. We're taught to fear based on what we listen to. And some people are better at this than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, growing up, my parents always had that thing of people, like, what are people going to say? What's the family going to think? And, it's just a thing that, like, for me was taught. Like, things were like, oh, you don't wear that because then what are people going to think? And I used to like to have jeans with like holes in the knees, and then I'd put bleach on them. And my parents didn't like that. Like, they didn't like it at all. My mom wanted me to wear dresses, and I was more like wanting to be relaxed and wear jeans and, pants and stuff. But
my parents were the same way. In fact, when I was just before I graduated high school, talking about bleach, I bleached my hair. It was at the time I would do like the streaks in the hair, but then one thing, I'm just going to do it all. And from my perspective, I liked it. And it was interesting because I was working at a grocery store at the time, and it's the grocery store my mom would shop, and I'm sitting there and
well, she worked there too, didn't she?
She worked at a different store.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny because I'm working there in the front, and she walks in, and she just did not like it at all. Ooh. I remember this. So I worked through this.
She ignored
this moment.
You?
No, you saw this. That look, like, and then the silence and the quiet. She goes out because she's coming to the grocery shop. She goes and does her grocery shopping. She gets to the counter, and she's just throwing things on the counter, things bouncing off the conveyor belt, and she is upset.
That's funny.
And because she didn't like it,
Yeah.
because she was afraid what people were going to think about her, but I enjoyed it. Like I had no, I was like, even if it looked horrible, it's like I liked it at that time. But I had to change it because it became a conversation at home. But again, we do things because of maybe what other people think. What are they going to say? And so it's like, it's not good. The belief now, it's not good for me to express or to say things because of how other people are going to think or say.
Yeah.
We still have to be mindful of what we say because there's consequences to that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we feel like we can't express at all, then we become stifled.
Yeah.
We might think we don't have a voice, or it's not good for me to express or do things creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really slow us down in our life.
Yeah. Let's go to some of the comments here. That can also indicate that we feel out of control if we are looking to control a situation. We don't seek to control things that don't feel out of balance. Yeah, and that's true. Like, and there is some people that want to have control of everything, but then when they don't, that's when they can get bent out of shape because they don't have control of other people or things, their expectations of things going a certain way. That's why sometimes too, to have expectations, it's like sometimes it's better not to, because if it goes other than the way you want it to, then it can really mess you up emotionally if you're so attached to that. But it's like going with the flow. It's like, okay, this is happening now. Okay, let's go with it. But it can mess with people's emotions and stuff.
Absolutely. We got Craig Garcia watching with us here
Craig.
in the watch party. He says, let go and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about letting go.
Yeah.
Letting go of a lot of stuff. We have to start with our beliefs and our thoughts first, because everything starts in thought. If there's an invention, there's an idea, somebody had to think of it as an idea in their mind first before it was manifested into its physical form. And then anytime we think about something, we thought has energy. So we radiate that out like a wireless signal. And what amplifies that thought is the emotion we put behind that. We can amplify it with fear, or we can amplify it with joy and happiness. Mm-hmm. And so whatever it is that you're trying to create in your life, is you want to pay attention to what's the energy I'm putting behind this thought? What's the energy I'm putting behind this idea, this invention, this career, this business? And that's very, very important. And if we're carrying on to old, it's like carrying the DOS system of beliefs that don't really work well today in 2020, we have to upgrade a little bit.
Yeah. And Abigail, she says, some people have to learn to let go of control, and others need to learn to step into it and learn to control things for themselves. Yeah, and it's doing things for yourself versus having other people do it for you, or having other people control your life, because it's like we all have our own life the way we want to live it. So like we can control our own thoughts and our actions, but it's when you allow other people to do that for you, you're not really being true to yourself. So it's like we only have control of us and our own thoughts and our own actions. So we can't control other people. Yeah,
and at some point, we're trying to do that. We're trying to have control. We're allowing other people to do things for us. What you're going to find is somewhere in your life, there's a lot of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
It's like, it's stepping into your power, but not feeling like you have to control others, because you can't. Those who are trying to control, it's because they're trying to create a certain situation. But again, behind that control, the reason why there's a need for it, there's a purpose. And that could be, again, it could be a fear-based reaction. If I don't have control, then everything's going to fall apart and I could be at risk or at danger in some way. Mm-hmm. That's why they might get really, like, when things aren't in control, they can get really like emotional. They can get either upset or fear because it's now affecting them at a physiological level. Mm-hmm. And this is all happens because of a previous experience that they've had that might have been very significant in their life. And anytime that shows up again, and the strategy is, so I don't experience this anymore, I need to have control. And that becomes a belief system.
And you might not like what other people are doing around you, but you can't control them from doing it or whatever they're doing, but you can control how you react to it or how you respond to it. But it does take, mental work, because you have to really train yourself to like accept who they are. And it's like, okay, that's them. That's their own thing that they have to deal with, but I'm not going to let it affect me.
Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about this whole concept, and we're getting close to the end here.
Mm-hmm.
It's how do we let all of this go? And so one of the things, and I mentioned this earlier, is first we need to be aware. So we want to make a change in our life. The first thing we would want to understand is, what is my belief around this topic? And you might want to brainstorm and write it out. You may want to say it, listen to yourself. You can record yourself, so many different things, and think about and pay attention to what are the words or phrases that I use around this situation. What was told to me growing up or around the situation, whether it's in relationships, you can do this any category, in business and finances and in your health, and spirituality, anything. And it's interesting because sometimes when we go back and we look at it, some of them you see it and say, this is ridiculous. I believe this. That's why our belief systems are an evaluation of something. If we go back and reevaluate our belief systems, more than likely that your belief about that will start to change.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like when you really are aware and you're looking at it on how you're thinking, you're like, wow, like I didn't think I really thought these things about myself. And so then that's, when you can create that change or decide that you want to change that. But awareness, like you said, is key, and knowing that you have those thoughts there and wanting to change them. So when you do find yourself maybe saying something negative about yourself or other people, and that's something that you want to change, it's like switch your thoughts to something more positive and find the good in some other people, find the good in yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah. And then once you're aware of all that, you can ask yourself these questions. Why do I believe this? That's a good question. You ask that question, why, your mind will start to search for an answer. Why do I believe that? And if you can keep asking that same question, why, until you get to the real core issue of where does this come from? And then the next is, once you identify that, you can ask yourself, am I willing? Am I willing to change this belief? Am I willing to let this go and bring in something new to serve my life better?
So when you look at yourself, like you can, how they say water is mutable. So when you have a clean glass of water, you put a drop of blue food coloring, and that's like the new belief system. And it kind of takes the water takes the whole color of the food coloring, like it completely changes. But then, like, say you throw a rock in there, that rock just sinks to the bottom and it just stays there. But it can always be removed. You can always take that rock out and remove it.
No matter how heavy it is.
Yeah, it doesn't have to stay there. And but be mutable to change for the better. Be like water, and how Bruce Lee used to say, be like water and change. That. Yeah,
because water, it
mutates. It changes.
He would say, like, if you put water in the cup, the water becomes the cup because it takes its form. And so that's a good analogy about the rock, because imagine it's this big heavy boulder that weighs just thousands of tons. It can be removed, but it's going to take some work, and it'll
weigh you down because of the weight. It creates a weight on you. But the moment you remove that limiting belief, you feel lighter. And that's like the work we do with the emotions and letting go of these old beliefs or anything that you want to change. The moment you clear that, a lot of people say, I feel so much lighter, because they're no longer holding on to whatever was there. So,
and it's amazing the amount of energy that they release because of that. People get really hot. They start to sweat. Just a lot of the emotion that's been stuck in there. And it's the emotional weight that we're really talking about, is that we carry with us because of these experiences, the hurts that we hold on to, the fears that we hold on to. And it's these emotions, when they start to show up, that really start to dictate our behaviors and our actions. And that is now going to determine the results that we get in our life. So imagine this, if we were to change just one belief system and let go of an emotion that's attached to that, what would be different in your life?
Yeah.
One big belief system that could be running a whole cascade of events in your life. By removing just that one rock, what could be different?
What if you remove hundreds of rocks? How much lighter you would feel?
You know how much rocks that
You'd be
we've removed in our
floating.
life? It's like, yeah, we've removed so much over the years, and we're still finding, you know, little crumbs and pebbles here and there. Sometimes we find like a big one. It's like, wow, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Because we're always working through stuff. But we have to always improve on ourselves. We have to figure out what's not serving us so we can create something different. But we have to be aware. And if you don't know how to do that, you can reach out for help. Reach out to us. That's what we are really good at. We help you remove those rocks in your life so you can create something new and something beautiful and move forward.
And Abigail says, fear was this rock for me. Yeah, and I think that's the fear is a big rock for a lot of people. And especially now you see that fear coming up. And because it took like something drastic, but it's a good thing because now people, they can be aware of that they have that fear, especially the unknown. But it's when you have those negative emotions of fear and worry, just understand that it does affect your immune system. So it's like, if you want to be, you know, have better health, these are just the things that we need to let go.
Yeah. And you'll find that it'll creep up once in a while. It's like you remove that big boulder, but there's still some residual dust and dirt that's left over that may show up once in a while, but it's not as heavy. And once you identify, then you just, it's like taking the dust broom. Let's get, I missed this. You sweep it up a little bit. Let's remove some more of this, but it's not as heavy. You work through it. That's what you probably experienced. We're all going to, it's not, you don't get away from all these emotions. Don't get us wrong. You're going to experience fear in your life. You're going to experience anger. Even if you work through all of this, you're still going to experience, but in a different way for a different reason. And the key thing is, how long do you allow yourself to stay in that fear? How long do you allow yourself to stay in the anger?
And that's what Abigail said earlier, that she, when she gets into that fear mode, it's not as long as it used to be. Like she's able to work through it and kind of get over it faster than she did before, which is great. So keep doing what you're doing, because stuff will happen and things will come up. But and also it's important for us not to beat ourselves up if things come up like that, and you go, you know, back into like that fear, or maybe the fear of judgment or whatever it is. But it's like, just understand, like, oh, there's still a little work that I have to do, and that's okay. That's great when it shows up, because you know that there's still something there.
Yeah. And our beliefs are what really shape our life. And if you are looking to reshape your life in a different way, you want to remold it to something else, then we have to redo our belief systems. And that's an important one, and find out which ones still hold true and are really serving me. Keep those. But if you find there are ones that when you start to do this evaluation on yourself, I got this belief system because so-and-so told me this, or I had this experience. And one thing I always ask myself is this hold true for me today? Or is what I believe, is that absolutely true? Again, we talked about that all, the never, saying that all people are this way, or all situations like this. Or, you know, anytime I do this, I always go through, you know, have this experience. But is that absolutely true? Which means that if it was an absolute, every single person in this world would have the exact same experience. And if I realize, wow, so-and-so did this, or another person was able to do it, then that means it's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
But it's a belief system we hold for us. You know, I can't do what they do, but that's still a belief system. That's a can't. But if they can do it, you can. It's just, are you willing to do it? There's a difference.
Yeah.
I can do it, but maybe I don't want to. Maybe it's not the path that I want to go down. But I could do it if I choose to, because I can learn new skills. I can do all these different things. And it's just, but maybe I have a different perspective. I have a different knowledge. I have different fears that show up.
Yeah.
But if I'm willing to do something, and I know that it can be done, we have this belief system. Anything can be done now, if we choose to.
Can change. And Abigail says, sometimes we chisel the rock and change it and build upon what came before it. We should accept that life is just not all positive. Yeah, and the life does have, you know, the negative sides to it, and things that we don't necessarily enjoy. But it's, when you look at it, it's really a good thing to have those negatives, because then it's showing us or it teaches us what we do want. So just because that stuff is there, it's like, okay, that's something that I don't really enjoy, but it's an opportunity to focus on what you do want to enjoy, but not all the other stuff that's there that you don't really like, but you can change it to change your point of focus.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff all around us that, horrible things, but it's what are we choosing to focus on?
Yeah. And what you focus on, you give energy to.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes the exact same amount of energy to focus on something that you want to change, to focus on something good in your life. So we like to gravitate towards things that make us feel good. And some people get into the habit of feeling bad. It's like, there could be really an issue with feeling good. And we've had people that are like this. To feel something great in their life or to feel happy, to them, that's uncomfortable because that's a whole completely different vibration and energy to them because they've known nothing different other than feeling fear or worry or anger all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that person you always, I remember seeing this before too, is, the people that are always bubbly and happy, and someone says, oh, why are they always so happy all the time? And, you get that way because if you're not experiencing happiness, again, that could be the criticism of, wow, they're happy, I'm not. It's contrast. That's all it really is.
Yeah. And Abigail says, it at the very least shows us who we don't want to be. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because it's the contrast, like Aaron said. So it's like, okay, that's there, but I don't want that, but I'm going to focus on this, what I do want. And it's there to show us and decide what we want, who we want to be. And that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's the emotions and the habits that want to pull us back. Mm-hmm. You're trying to drift off in a better direction. And that old pattern will want to pull you back if you don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And we have to just repeatedly do and watch different things, try to feel good as best that we can. If you feel down, it's going to happen. You go through the emotional storm of it, allow it to this process, allow yourself to experience it. Mm-hmm. And then once you feel calmer, it's like, okay, I'm going to move myself into a better direction. I'm not going to stay here much longer.
Yeah, and that's what life is for, to experience things. And we're gonna experience good. We're gonna experience things that we perceive as bad, and but that's what we're here for, to experience life. But finding the things that are more joyous to you and that bring you joy, and the things to focus on that bring you more joy. Yeah,
and I just choose. I'm not going to allow other situations to take my joy away.
Mm-hmm. And that's what Mary says. I try to stay happy all the time. I don't care what the world thinks. Yeah, that's how it should be. Just you stay happy, and if people are wondering why you're so happy, then maybe that's something that they want. And if they're criticizing you, that's because they're not feeling happy on the inside.
Yeah, and maybe you can be that light for them. Mm-hmm. So that's why we share things here on the show. What Awaken Your Spirit really is all about is to help you experience more joy in your life, because that's part of that spirit that's within us, mm-hmm. all of us. It comes from love. It wants to be happy all the time. We are always gravitating toward things that are pleasurable for us, mm-hmm. and we move away from anything that we consider to be painful.
Yeah, and then those people that are maybe wondering, why is she so happy? Maybe they'll take the chance to ask you, why are you so happy? And I want to be that way. And, that's lighting the path for others to, find that happiness.
But it's a choice. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes people might say, well, in order to be happy, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And someone might have a belief that says, oh, that's too hard. I can't do that. I'm not like you. I've gotten these things before. And I was like, I can't be like you. I can't do the things that you do. It's, again, you can. Anybody can do anything. You just choose not to. And it's based on a belief of, I think it's too hard. I'm not capable. What if I fail and I'm not, again, do it. And then it starts to affect our self-esteem. Yeah. We try to avoid our being hurt on the inside in some way. But we can do that. But we have to learn to do these things. We have to learn to change these old beliefs to create a new one. Mm-hmm. But it takes practice.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of people don't like change. So to create that change is just too much for them, and they just stay where they're at, and there's no growth or anything.
Yeah. And so we're here to help you making those changes. We're here to help you grow. We're here to grow all together. And if you guys have really enjoyed this show, Awaken Your Spirit with us, we go over a lot of these topics here on the show. And if we are live here every Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, if you'd like to join us here on the show, just turn on the live notification here into the feed. If you're watching this on YouTube, because we're live on YouTube right now, you can subscribe to the channel and turn on that little bell to get notifications every time we have a video. And you guys can find us here at Aaron and Veronica if you like to watch this episode again. Or if you'd like to go watch our previous episodes, you can follow us and do everything there. And let us know how you enjoyed the show.
And where can they find us on YouTube?
Just search up Aaron and Veronica on YouTube. I'll put a link here in the feed so you guys can find that. And subscribe. We'd love to have you guys as subscribers as well.
All right.
All right. So thank you guys for being here today with us. We've had a lot of fun talking with you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much.
You guys are really what make this show. If you know anybody that can benefit from this message, please share the show with them, because we never know who this message is going to impact.
All right. Well, have a great day, and we will see you on Wednesday.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.